Park readers, and welcome to Storytime Online. Tonight we have reached the last couple of chapters of Mercy Watson to the Rescue, so we are going to finish that up tonight. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. So in Mercy Watson yesterday, where we left off was the Lincoln sisters had called the fire department. Eugenia Lincoln, the older sister, had called because Mercy was in her yard. The fire department arrived to find Eugenia chasing Mercy. And then, from far away, they heard the Watsons, who were still crashing through their floor, and the two firefighters rushed to go help. Let me see. Chapter 9. Ned and Lorenzo ran toward the call for help. They went into the Watsons' house. Help! Ned and Lorenzo looked up. They saw a bed hanging out of the ceiling. They saw Mr. and Mrs. Watson holding onto the bed for dear life. "We are saved!" cried Mrs. Watson. "Of course we are saved," said Mr. Watson. "Mercy has alerted the fire department." "She is amazing," said Mrs. Watson. "She is unbelievable." "She is a porcine wonder," said Mr. Watson. Ned and Lorenzo ran upstairs. They picked up Mr. and Mrs. Watson. The Watsons' bed sighed loudly and crashed all the way through the floor. Boom! Mr. Watson looked at the hole where the bed used to be. "I have always believed very firmly in the fire department," said Mr. Watson. "As have I," said Mrs. Watson. "As have I." From outside the Watsons' house came a squeal. "Gotcha!" shouted Eugenia. Chapter 10. Ned and Lorenzo and Mr. and Mrs. Watson all went outside. Eugenia was sitting on the ground, her arms wrapped around Mercy's neck. Her cheek was resting on Mercy's back. Eugenia was breathing very loudly. "This pig," she said, "was on my property." "We'd prefer that you did not call her a pig," said Mrs. Watson. "We would prefer that you call her a porcine wonder," said Mr. Watson. "After all, she did save us. She's a hero." "She's a pig," said Eugenia. She started to cry. "Oh, there, sister," said Baby. She bent over and patted Eugenia's back. Mercy yawned. She was very tired. "I guess that's it," said Ned. "Yep," said Lorenzo. "Our work here is done." "Wait," said Mrs. Watson. "It's almost time for breakfast." "Oink?" asked Mercy. "That's right, breakfast," said Mrs. Watson. She kissed the top of Mercy's head. She looked up at the firemen. "Do you boys like toast?" Chapter 11. In the Watsons' house, around the Watsons' kitchen table, sat Eugenia Lincoln and Baby Lincoln, and Mr. and Mrs. Watson, and Ned and Lorenzo, and Mercy, of course. She was at the head of the table in the seat of honor, and in front of her, on her favorite blue plate, was a very tall stack of hot buttered toast. "A toast to Mercy," said Mr. Watson, holding up his glass of orange juice. "A toast to our darling, our dear," said Mrs. Watson. "A toast to Mercy," said Baby. "In my opinion," said Eugenia, "pigs should not be toasted. In my opinion, pigs do not belong at the kitchen table." "To our hero," said Mr. Watson. "Where would we be without Mercy?" "Yes," said Mrs. Watson. "Who would have saved us?" "I can't imagine," said Ned. "Me neither," said Lorenzo. They all clinked glasses. Mercy had another piece of toast. Chapter 12. Outside the Watsons' house, the sun was rising. First the sun was red, then it was orange, and it rose higher and higher. Inside the Watsons' house, Mercy was lying on the couch. She was getting ready to take a nap. Bright, bright as the morning sun, sang Mr. and Mrs. Watson together. But brighter still is our porcine wonder. Mercy smiled. She closed her eyes. She was asleep before Mr. and Mrs. Watson even finished their song. And that is the end. So I hope you enjoyed this first book of the Mercy Watson series. If you really enjoyed hearing about Mercy and the Watsons, you can check out some more of these on the Maryland Library Consortium, which is all of the digital resources that your Enoch Pratt Library has for you. So definitely go online and check that out if you enjoyed our Mercy Watson story. For tonight, sweet dreams and happy reading.